10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us? Welcome to 10 Steps Further.
Special episode.
Special edition.
And the whole purpose of this episode is to tell you, wash your hands.
Yeah. That's it. Could be that long.
Just wash your hands.
Your daughter is a nurse.
Yes.
And we were in the car, and she was on the phone, and that was exactly like, she's just wash your hands, people. This was a couple days ago. I don't know if it's gotten more out of hand.
We just had Chad in the office. He says, yeah, man, like I've been telling everybody on Facebook, telling you, wash your hands, wash your hands. Says, but I am washing my hands, and I can never wash my hands. Right? Did I misread that?
No, then he's like, just kidding. a little no laughter.
Now we said it to everybody.
Right. You're welcome, Chad.
So we're doing this podcast essentially because Jonathan and I realize the importance of what's happening with coronavirus.
Right.
And how did we come to this conclusion, Jonathan, that this was serious?
They shut down the NBA. They shut down the basketball world.
We never even heard of coronavirus until they stopped playing games. What? What's this?
Why? Why is Zion Williamson not playing his game?
It was scheduled, and they ran the first game, but not the second game, and Zion was going to play.
Man.
Come on, man.
Yeah, it's well, and that for real though, it's like, so my kids stayed home from school today.
They did,
yeah,
I know.
and so after and not because of the school, just because like I started really digging in and I'm like, I don't know, I have no idea. I think that's where most people are at, is like,
right.
What, because there's like, is it the zombie apocalypse, or is it like, it's kind of a little bit more extreme than the common cold?
Yeah, so I don't know where to land on all of that, because I just heard today that the statistics from the swine flu were similar. Right. And we did
the media
we did essentially nothing,
was...
but the media exploited it.
Right.
So we don't know. Yeah. Right. We do know that this is unprecedented.
Right.
The NHL just came out. They shut down their league. NBA shut down their league. So all that kind of stuff is not happening.
Right. Right. And in the kids' school, like they came home, and I just talking to my kids, like, what have you got? What are you guys hearing at school? If somebody sneezes, teacher gives them a note, they leave. Okay. Like that's how. So I'm like, well, if they're at that point, why are you guys even going to school at this point? Like, let's wait and see if this thing gets out of hand. So the schools are not shut down, but they're being very extreme on anybody who seems even a little bit sick.
Sure, and they're really just cutting down on nosebleeds, because if all you have to do is sneeze to get out of a class,
kids are like,
they're going to be
bringing pepper to class.
Put pencils up there, whatever. I'm out. Yeah, suckers.
What, a test? I need some of that pepper. Yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to just chat a little bit about what our reaction should be. Right. So maybe let's talk about some of the reactions that people generally have. Maybe this is just good therapy. Yeah. We're not going to spend a whole time telling you to wash your hands or not go to the movies or any of that kind of stuff, because you're getting all that stuff. You don't need any of that. Yeah. But maybe just being a part of this conversation where, okay, here's some feelings that people have out there. All right.
Yeah, I would say, one thing is you do see a little bit of panic, but I think most people are laughing at the panic.
Toilet paper panic.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like, you can't find it. It's not in the stores.
Right. I see people walking out with they're settling for paper towels. Yeah. And that is definitely a downgrade.
I just wonder how much you can get on eBay for a roll of toilet paper right now.
Ooh, that'd be great, man.
Because I got
one ply's going for $10. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's going on. There's just some crazy videos.
We were in the store last night just to pick up some basic supplies. We didn't go crazy or anything, but water is everywhere, which is, again, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like
my sink is still going to work.
Yeah, my sink. Yeah. Why am I going to need to buy all that water?
Yeah.
We basically bought, just kind of as prep, got things that we wouldn't want to have to go out for. Like if you got the flu,
right,
you'd want to be drinking Gatorade and you'd
Right.
want to be eating rice because those are the things that are common in your stomach and applesauce. So we picked
Right.
up some of those things.
Yeah.
But that panic is real.
Yeah.
Some people have a like food or those kinds of panic or supply panic.
Right.
Some people will actually legitimately have a health panic.
Right.
They're fearing for, am I going to get this and what does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm not in that spot. I'm a
Right.
hypochondriac, but I don't go to that place.
Right. Right. You know what's interesting though, like in some ways I have, like, just thinking through it, I'm like, well, if keeping my kids, I think this was kind of a decision where I was like talking to my kids, is like, if keeping them home, I mean, I've, like, people talk about this, I think is kind of, with some people it turns to pneumonia or something similar to that.
Right.
And like breathing issues and stuff. I'm like, man, if I could keep them from that, if I could keep our house from getting that, I don't know if I can, but if I could take some steps to keep us from
Sure.
experiencing that, it's like, yeah, that alone seems worth it. So there has been in my mind of just like, okay, if there's something out there that's taking people down and making life miserable for them for 2 weeks,
Right.
I would rather not have that. Like, I'd rather just like, oh, hang out with my kids for a few days. That sounds
Right.
awesome.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
So, and I feel like we're at a place right now, like this whole thing is going to be this discussion will change in a week and in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. We're going to know a lot more than we do right now.
Yeah. That another fear that people have, and I'm more likely to go to these spaces in my thinking. I'm not worried about my own health.
Yeah.
But part of me becomes a conspiracy theorist.
Okay.
And I make it about politics.
Yeah.
And why, like we're blowing this up
Right.
and there's some people blowing, and there can be anger from that.
Right. I start there.
Yeah.
That's where I start, and then I go into like, well, maybe I should wash my hands. Like, I start with like, what's the agenda?
Right.
Like I do that when I watch movies. Like, I'm
Right.
like, what are they trying to tell me, right? And then I'm like, okay, that's a good movie. Like,
Right.
After
Yeah.
I get it. So yeah, I tend to start there and like look at the political side.
So
to it.
one conspiracy was that the reason we're blowing this up is people who are involved in the stock market
Mm-hmm.
are feeding this information out so that they can take out all of their stocks, and when the stock market drops like it did today,
Right.
then they'll put their money back in and they'll make all kinds of money
Okay.
as it rebounds.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I've heard that.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, like, I mean, obviously all the election stuff is
The
going
election
on.
stuff, yep. I
And
don't know
so-
what that means, though. Like, how can this either help the Republicans or help the Democrats? I don't
Right.
know. I don't know the answer to that, but
A
I've
lot
heard
of it,
that.
though, is like the one big thing I think that the current party with Donald Trump is the economy has been doing great.
Okay.
And so if there's anything that can take him down, it's that we go into an election season where the economy's at its worst
Right.
rather than at its best.
Right.
So there has been some of that of
I
just like,
gotcha.
can we blame him?
Right,
It was
right.
during his run that the economy hit its low
Yeah.
rather than its high.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does make some sense.
Right.
Although I don't know that anything's going to turn.
Yeah.
Like, people have kind of decided those things anyway in their
Yeah.
own minds. I don't know how much that'll make a difference, but that's
Yeah.
a thing, right?
Yeah.
But there's also not just stock market, because I know you might go, oh, well, then I'm going to have to work a couple extra years for my
Right.
retirement. And,
Right.
But in some ways, I'm a small business owner.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We work at a church.
Yep.
And you wonder what's going to happen to my people and
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen to our organization. And so I just text messaged a couple of guys. They're financial planners.
Right.
And this is a really hard day for them because the stock market dropped and they have all people calling them. And what am I
Right.
going to do? What should I do? What have
Right.
you? They carry, it's probably more than that too. It's probably that they carry the weight
Right.
of all
Helping
these
people have made decisions that got them into this situation a little bit.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And if they just look at online on their computer what their stocks are worth now and what they were worth last week, they're gonna.
Right.
That's rough,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And none of that stuff have I paid any attention to as far as like I've heard it, but I don't, you know.
Sure. Or restaurants.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot that came out about small business owners taking out a loan, which I'm sure that could be helpful, but they still owed that money.
Right.
Their lifestyle as they were moving forward, and most people don't have like a whole lot of extra buffer in their life
Right.
for their business to work. And this could affect restaurants
Right.
and certainly I don't know. We're still going to the movies.
They're still making their money off of us, though. We've got the movie pass at our local theater, so we could just go. And now it's like, well, now I'm paying for the movie pass, but I don't know if I want to go to the movies
I get
where there's a bunch of people.
Yeah, no, right.
Even though
I bought
did
mine
go
last week. What a sucker I was.
Yeah, you took down movie pass too back in the day. So.
So look, all kinds of different responses.
Right.
And I can go to those, and I want to hear people out that
Yeah.
are feeling the health fear
Yeah.
or the money fear or the retirement fear or,
Yep.
hey, what about my grandparents? All
Right.
those fears.
Right.
I just don't particularly think that as somebody that follows God, and we're talking to the God people here, right?
Right.
Maybe you're not in that spot yet.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the response that he wants us to have.
Right.
And as we kind of talked about this, I was chatting with my wife, Jelaine, yesterday. She was saying, well, what should our response be? This is an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to trust, for one.
That's
Just
a
to be,
good place to start.
To be
right?
the example of, like, you know what? Like, human beings, Christian people, or not, just human beings, have been through harder and have been
Right.
through worse. And we got hope. We've got hope. We know God's on our side, so we've got hope, both that He'll take care of us, and that we've got even if we lose, we win as Christians. Like
Right.
there is that. There is the, if we all get taken out by some zombie apocalypse,
Right.
we know we're living in a different kingdom.
Right.
So there is that as well.
So the question is, though, like as a zombie, are you still like?
Do you still have a soul?
Do you still have a soul, or did it already leave? I don't know that.
Right.
I don't know if we can answer that question today. That's part of it.
Right.
The hope part is.
Yeah.
And like we say all the time on this podcast, life's not about here. Life's about
Right.
getting there, and when
Right.
God will restore your life and your body and our earth.
Right.
And so even like worst case scenario, coronavirus took you out,
Right.
you would go be with God who would restore you,
Right. Yeah.
Or the people that you love,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
But I think that I've gone through my life, and I wish, as in retrospect, that I had trusted more.
Right.
That I believe God more, that
Yeah.
He's writing the story,
Mm-hmm.
and that He's going to write it in a way that even the difficulties are going to build me into who I am.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I think of it's funny because I remember the Y2K a long time ago. The Y2K.
right.
I mean, because kind of right now we're kind of there as far as San Diego, California, where
Sure.
we're at.
Yeah.
Where kind of nothing has happened, but it could,
Right.
And so that was where we were with Y2K. We're just like, we have no idea what's going to happen. And I remember a pastor that I was listening to, and he was talking about Joseph. In the Bible, and how Joseph was storing up grain because he had this dream of all of the famine that was going to come, and it was going to be 7 years of famine. It was going to be 7 years of plenty, and then 7 years of famine. And so he stored up during this time to get them through this hard trial, this hard famine. But the conclusion, so the question is, okay, so do we stockpile our houses with everything, and we get all that we can? Well, what was interesting about it is the conclusion he came to was God's people did nothing. God just took care of them. Like Joseph stored up because God gave him a vision for what to do. But the Jews, God's people, were just invited in, and they got to share with all the stuff. And so they were just provided for and taken care of during this time. And I think that there was something kind of cool about that, of just trusting. And obviously, it turned out that Y2K was a big hoax, but
Right. Yeah.
but the principle, which was a message that was given before the whole thing, when there was still nobody knew, was God takes care of His people.
Do you think you can just make up your mind that you could say, okay, this time I'm going to trust. This time I'm not going to go to fear. I'm going to just believe.
Yeah.
Can you make up your mind like that?
I think it's got to be literally a moment by moment. Every time you get hit with a new piece of information, like last night I spent a couple hours on. I mean, I think social media is blown up like never before right now.
Right.
And all the posts are the same. It's all coronavirus stuff, And I was on it, and I'm never on like what's going on in the media. Like that's never my world. And I was for a couple hours. I'm watching news clips and president stuff, and then I was just like, wow, should I be doing this? Like, is this where I should be spending my energy of just like, because you just find yourself kind of getting consumed by it.
Right. Yep. Here's our verse, okay? Mm-hmm. This is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I lay a stone in Zion. Mm-hmm. See, it takes us all back to basketball.
Zion Williamson.
Yeah. I don't think this is talking about when he says I lay a stone in Zion. What does that mean?
Well, the stone is Jesus.
Right. He's the cornerstone on which you build your life. So
foundation.
Yeah, I just talked about this a couple weeks ago in church, that when I put in pavers, there was a stone that you put in first.
Yeah.
That goes in first, and everything is built off of that.
Right.
It's all measured off of that. So that's kind of what he's talking about. He says, look, this is what we're going to do. I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. So if we build with what God wants us to think and do first, build everything off of that.
Right.
And at this point, some people are building their life on fear or panic.
Right.
And everything that happens in their life just comes out of that.
Right.
And there's all kinds of things we do. Like family can be your first cornerstone. Money can be your first cornerstone. All of those are kind of wavering.
Right.
Corona wavers all of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then I'm worried about my family, or I'm worried about if I'm going to retire, all those things.
Right.
If money is your chief cornerstone, or even family, which seems like a good one.
Right.
Okay? I lay a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. That's Isaiah 28:16.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of panic-stricken people. And it's not just, hey, I'm afraid for my life, but I'm afraid for my future. I'm afraid that I'm caught myself. I live in a place where it's a conspiracy against me.
Right.
Or these people are making decisions that are going to ruin culture as we know it in the short term.
Right.
Right. There's all kinds of things like that. So to be able to say, look, okay, I'm going to put my faith in God and trust that he's writing my story.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The other part of that is what I really want to challenge people with is this is an opportunity to say to our world, I'm not going to live in fear about this. I'm not going to worry about this all the time. I'm not going to get caught myself in all the conspiracy theory. I will never know if this was all real or conspiracy or politically motivated. I'm really never going to know. So I could choose to live in that and keep following that or researching that or looking into that. Or I could choose to say, okay, God, I'm going to trust in you. And the other thing I want to challenge people to is to use this as an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of people around you. Because there are people who are in all kinds of panic and fear. Right?
Yeah, I think there's just an interesting principle of life that it is just simply light shines brightest in the darkest places or in the darkest times.
Yes.
And throughout all of history, especially Bible times, but throughout all of history, really the greatest heroes come out of the darkest wars, the darkest moments. Christianity kind of spreads during times of opposition and difficulty. So it just becomes an opportunity really to just glorify God in what we do. It becomes an opportunity where people their priorities are shifted. I mean, because there's health scare. I mean, what are like the biggest things that people hold on to of just like life is good when my health is solid, when my money's solid.
Yeah.
Those two things right now are in question.
Right.
What's this going to do financially? What's this going to do to our health of us as individuals, of us as a culture? And those are times where it's like, okay, all those priorities, because neither one of those things are going to last, no matter what. Like you're not going to end with good health and any money, and so it kind of gives this opportunity to speak into that and just say, you know what, there is one that you can draw close to that gives you peace in this time, gives you hope in this time, and we can be that to say that is cliche, but to act as if we believe it, Like, you know what? I'm gonna pour into you. I'm gonna give what I have, a little bit of what I have to you if you have that need.
Yeah.
I feel like there's opportunity.
I think you're right. In some ways, you might want to even look at this situation and go, am I panicking? If I'm panicking, what is this an indication of? Maybe I have put my hope in my money more than I actually should.
Right.
Or even in my family or my health more than I absolutely should.
Right.
Because God says, look, man, I want to be chief. I want to be number one.
Right.
And are you doing that? So whatever is going on in your heart,
Right.
one of the ways, like if we've talked about this, we could just read verses about don't fear, don't fear, don't fear, don't fear.
Right.
And what will that make people feel?
You know, somebody walks into a room and says, okay, don't panic. Like whatever's coming next doesn't even matter. Your heart's beating faster. You're starting to sweat. Like,
right.
Oh man, what happened? You know, like if one of my kids came over, my wife, like, hey, don't panic, sit down, but don't panic. Like I'm already like, oh no, here it comes,
right.
braced.
Yeah. Yes. So I want to challenge people to see if you can be a difference maker. Like try to put your needs aside.
Yeah.
And try to reach out to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, the first two guys that I thought about were guys that are in the financial field who are financial planners, and everybody's calling them panicked.
Yeah.
And so I sent them a text.
Yeah.
And the first one I got back was, thanks, Jack. Means the world to me. It's brutal. And yeah, it is brutal.
Yeah.
The second person I sent a text to was somebody that I know that has cancer. So now they're reading this going, okay, this is for real.
Right.
Right?
Right.
This is what I got from my friend Chris. I just said, hey, man, want to make sure you're good. And he says, you know, I said, just checking on you. Apparently, we'll all be Corona zombies soon. and he just said, you know what? Nothing. He's being baptized on Sunday. He says, nothing's going to keep me from being baptized this Sunday.
Yep.
Because, so anyway, who is it that you can reach out to?
Right.
Who is it that you can care for?
Yeah.
You know, one of the other thoughts was, you know, restaurants are struggling right now.
Right.
Well, what about the waitress?
Yeah.
You know, they're not making money.
Yeah.
What if you went into that restaurant and maybe you don't even eat a meal?
Yeah.
Maybe you just walk in and tip.
Right. Right. Tip a giant roll of toilet paper.
Put that in
Most
there.
valuable thing.
Put a 20 in that in that roll of toilet paper. What are other ways that you think that we could be alert to the needs of people around us?
I think I did hear some talk about the homeless population in our city. Actually, more of LA and what's going on up there. But we have a large homeless population, and just thinking about, you know, the needs of those people, where they're at. They're just at risk. There's a greater risk, and just being aware of that.
Right.
Chad has. Did he say he reached out? We have an elderly community home nearby us, and he's talked about we could reach out to that group and just say, hey, how can we help you? Is there stuff we can bring to you?
Right.
That kind of thing. So,
right. Yeah. Okay, this is what I was looking for. This is a text I got this morning from my buddy Chris. He says, hanging in there. Show must go on, sir. Not going to let a little virus stop my family from being baptized by the best minister on the West Coast. He says,
you're bringing somebody in for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, I'm doing okay. Little worried, but not going to let it put me down. Thanks for checking, brother.
Yeah.
Who is there in your life that needs that extra checkup?
Right.
You know, that care. You know, if somebody goes down, what are you going to do to help reach out to that person?
Right.
Like, we can be difference makers in this scenario.
Right.
If you actually walk through your life and you're not angry because of your finances, you're not angry because politics messed you up, you're not worried that you're going to get sick, you're panicking about that, you're not having to fill your house with toilet paper.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I wonder if some of our jokes, like zombie apocalypse jokes, are are not helping at all. You know, like we know, because the reality of it is like what they're saying is like almost nobody's going to get it. Well, most likely it's not going to spread. We're going to contain it, and even if you do get it, like if you didn't know about it,
right,
and you got it, you would just be like, oh man, had the flu for the last couple of weeks. It's been miserable. Like that's most likely.
Yeah.
That's most people's scenario, even if they get it. So recognizing that it really, I mean, we're just trying to contain something. We're just trying to get in front of it more so than it's as scary as we're making it out to be.
Yeah. This is one of our values that we have at our church that maybe I want to throw out there. We've got these 6 values, and we went through them all. The one that we're not talking about today is we're better together.
Yeah,
we're better when we're generally 6 feet apart and not touching each other. That's what
with less than 200 people in the room.
Yeah, that's what that value has turned into. But one of them works.
Yeah,
we're designed to make a difference.
Yeah,
right. We're created by God to make a difference here. And what would it look like if we all mobilized to make that call? Reach out to that person.
Right.
Do those extra mile things.
Yeah.
Not live in panic and fear.
Yeah. Well, and some people have said one of the things that it's causing people to do the things that we should have already been doing, like wash your hands, that type of thing. Yeah. So, but it like that, these principles, we didn't come up with these principles because there's a coronavirus.
Right.
These principles are there. These are principles that we want to have anyway. But it just heightens that, like, if we're living truly in the values that we say that we have, it'll cause us to live differently than everybody else is living right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And respond differently.
So if you need us, we're here,
Yeah.
Jack at CanyonSprings.org, Jonathan at CanyonSprings.org.
Yeah.
You want to give us some ideas of how you think you can make a difference in the world in this time? Some thoughts, or hey, I did this and that was really helpful to somebody, or we'd love to know it and just keep getting that information out to you.
Yeah. And the whole point, I think, behind our podcast that we used to say all the time at the very beginning was we don't claim to have the answers. I think this episode, as much as any, proves that. Like, we don't have the expertise on this, but we do. Like, one of the reasons why we just decided to record, we're having this conversation anyways, and so are you. And so we just want to join with you in that conversation and maybe give that perspective of how do we handle this in a spiritual way, the way that God's calling us to.
Wouldn't it be great if at the end of this, you didn't have to be like, wow, I just lost 2 months of my life in fear.
Right.
I just lost a couple of months of my being angry that people have decided something in my life that never turned out to be real.
Yeah. Just watch old basketball games and you'll be fine.
We're going to have to do that. Wouldn't it be great if you could look back and say, not only did I made up my mind that I was going to trust and not go to fear, and that I was actually going to be on the lookout for ways to be generous to other people.
Yeah.
Opportunities to love people in ways that I wouldn't have necessarily done. That I'm going to be the one reaching out and making a difference.
No, it's good.
Yeah, it'd be good.
All right.
7.5 steps further.
There we go. Thank you guys for checking it out. If you've never seen us before, we do have a podcast every Tuesday. We have a new episode where we talk about something. So join us.
Generally, we know more about it than we do this.
Yeah, it's true. Nobody knows about this yet. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us for these last 10 steps. You can find the show notes for this podcast on our website, 10stepsfurther.com. If you'd like to join us for another journey, or if you know someone else who's on this walk, subscribe to our podcast at 10 Steps Further on iTunes, or simply search 10 Steps Further on your podcast app. If you'd like to be part of the conversation with a question or a comment or a criticism or even a wisecrack, join our Facebook group by simply searching 10 Steps Further. And if you're ever in San Diego, come visit us at Canyon Springs Church. We'd love to meet you.